The rain still lingered on the pavement when Ellie Grant, a 25-year-old nurse, vanished from Louisville, Kentucky, population 633,000. It was a humid summer night, the faint yellow streetlights illuminating the wet sidewalk. At 11:08 p.m., the University of Louisville Hospital camera captured her hurrying through the parking lot, keys in hand, her jacket dotted with the last drops of rain. Her silver Honda Civic pulled out of the hospital grounds and disappeared behind the trees along Brook Street. The next morning, she didn't show up for her shift, didn't answer her phone, her apartment lights still on, a cold coffee mug on the table. What happened in the next 8 hours would haunt Louisville for 15 years. Before diving into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest cases. Louisville, after the night rain, smelled of asphalt and drenched honeysuckle, steam rising from the empty streets, forming a thin mist under the dim sodium lights. The last shift of the day ended, and in the University of Louisville Hospital parking lot, only the sound of shoes and car keys jingled. Ellie Grant, 25, a night shift nurse, waved goodbye to a few colleagues heading home, then pulled her thin jacket over her shoulders, her hair damp from the rain. She opened the door of her silver Honda Civic, the interior light briefly illuminating her tired but still smiling face. She started the engine, the tires rolling over a thin layer of water, the car pulling out of the lot and heading east on Floyd Street. The security camera caught only a few seconds of her taillights sliding through the rain before the frame darkened, wet and silent. Louisville's night was quiet, as if swallowing all sound. A cat darted across the street, a faint train whistle sounded in the distance, then everything sank back into the patter of drizzle on the treetops. The next morning, as the sun rose and water lingered on railings, Ellie's hospital bed remained untouched. No one had seen her. Jillian Marks, her roommate, called repeatedly, each time hearing only the endless ring. She ran downstairs, knocked on neighbors' doors, asked the security guard, the newspaper delivery guy. No one knew anything. In Lexington, Ellie's mother called until her voice grew hoarse, tears mixing with her frantic breaths. A day passed, then another night, her phone still silent. Jillian sank to the floor by the dining table, the pale neon light reflecting in her wide eyes. Her hands trembled as she held the phone, fingers hesitating over the numbers before finally dialing. Her voice cracked, choked in her throat, managing only a few words. "My friend never came home." On the other end, the dispatcher confirmed, voice calm and professional. A brief report was logged in the system, just a few empty lines. Female, age 25, last seen near University Hospital. But behind those cold words was the start of a search that would last longer than anyone imagined. By Monday morning, the missing person report was officially filed with the Louisville Metro Police. That noon, Lieutenant Ryan Hale went to the scene. He stood on the wet steps, looking at the silent, locked apartment, its windows fogged with condensation. Jillian greeted him, eyes shadowed, voice hoarse from sleepless nights. Ryan asked the routine questions. Did she have debts? A boyfriend? Anyone pursuing her? The answers were the same: no, just an ordinary girl, coming home late from work, then gone. A search team was formed that afternoon. 12 officers, 2 K-9 units, and nearly 30 volunteers. They mapped a 3-mile radius from the University of Louisville Hospital to Ellie's apartment, splitting into groups with printed maps and crackling old radios. Dogs barked along roadside lawns, boots crunched through wet grass. Everyone was silent. Only the sound of light rain on plastic hoods and the heavy breathing of searchers. As dusk fell, the drizzle returned. Under an overpass near Eastern Parkway, a volunteer bent down, finding a single muddy sandal, the same style and color as the nursing shoes Ellie wore. Nearby, torn plastic bag scraps fluttered in the wind. Ryan personally took the items to the station, requesting fingerprint and DNA tests, but the results came back empty. Everything was washed away by the rain, leaving nothing to compare. That night, police knocked on doors, asking residents what they saw on August 10th. Most gave the same answer. They went to bed early or heard a car but didn't notice. One mentioned seeing car lights pause at a street corner, but wasn't sure who it was. Disjointed statements piled up on Ryan's desk, full of gaps. He stood by the window, watching raindrops streak down the glass, blue and red lights reflecting on the table. In the corner, Jillian sat motionless, clutching her phone. Each ring made her flinch, but every call was just police confirming details. No one heard Ellie's voice. By the third morning, the search expanded toward the Ohio River, its waters murky and turbulent this season. 2 canines followed the scent of Ellie's clothes, leading the team along a leaf-strewn trail, then stopping abruptly at a rusted metal fence. There was nothing but wet grass and the smell of damp trash. An officer muttered, "If she was really around here, the rain washed it all away." Ryan didn't respond. He knew that for an adult, police couldn't assume a crime without evidence of violence. The official report read, "Missing adult, no foul play suspected." The search continued, but with fewer officers, no sirens, no lines of flashlight-wielding volunteers at night. Just a few police and loved ones walking back roads, repinning rain-blurred flyers. On utility poles, Ellie's photo faded, her face blurring with each storm. Each day, hope retreated further. On the fifth morning, Louisville was still cloaked in fog. Thin sunlight filtered through elm trees, glinting off puddles from the night's rain. By mid-morning, word from volunteers reached the police. They'd found the silver Honda Civic on Maple Avenue, a quiet street just over a mile from Ellie's apartment. Ryan drove there immediately. Maple Avenue stretched through an old residential area, with white-painted wooden fences and manicured lawns, so neat they felt cold. The car sat neatly by the curb, wheels aligned with the grass, as if deliberately parked. No signs of a crash or damage. A young officer set up yellow cones around the scene, sealing it with tape that fluttered in the wind. As Ryan approached, something felt off. The car was too calm, too clean, like it was placed there, not abandoned. The driver's door was unlocked. He gloved up and opened it. Inside, Ellie's wallet and phone sat on the passenger seat. The phone's battery was dead, showing missed calls from Jillian. The air smelled of mildew and car plastic. The driver's seat was pushed back, too far for Ellie's 5'3" frame, clearly adjusted for someone taller, likely a man. Ryan shone a flashlight on the gas pedal, revealing a thick layer of gray mud on the rubber. He scraped it with a metal tool, smelling clay and oil. The mud didn't match the dry reddish-brown soil around Maple Avenue. This was sandy, dusty dirt. He signaled the forensics team to collect it. The driver's window was slightly open, enough for rain to drip onto the dashboard. No signs of forced entry, no blood, no hair. Everything seemed wiped clean, too perfect. "She didn't park here herself," Ryan said quietly. An officer asked, "Could she have left the car and gotten a ride?" Ryan shook his head, eyes fixed on the dust on the floor mat. "No, someone else sat here. Someone drove when she was already gone." He ordered the area sealed, photos taken from every angle, tire tracks and car position documented. Forensics brought evidence bags, sample tubes, and fingerprint powder. They worked silently, only the camera's shutter clicking. In the trunk, they found a crumpled white nurse's jacket, streaked with gray mud like the pedal. No blood, no signs of a struggle, just perfect emptiness. Ryan stepped back, scanning the street. It was so quiet you could hear leaves rustling in the wind. An elderly neighbor stood on her porch across the street, holding a small dog, watching curiously. Ryan approached her. She said, voice trembling, "That car doesn't belong here. I noticed it early morning, thought it was a visitor. By afternoon it was still there, so I got suspicious." When asked if she saw anyone near it, she shook her head. "No one. But last night, I heard an engine start briefly, maybe a few seconds." Her words made Ryan pause. If the engine started again, someone returned to the scene, maybe to check or ensure no one noticed. He ordered forensics to test the fuel tank vapor, determining when the engine was last run. Results later showed it was started about 10 hours earlier. matching the neighbor's account. Someone wanted to make sure the car was still here, Ryan told a colleague. He decided not to tow the car yet. Instead, they set up barriers overnight, installing temporary cameras in case the culprit returned. Near midnight, as forensics finished, Ryan signed the order, Vehicle 1472, evidence intact. He leaned against a lamppost, watching the Civic shadow in the yellow streetlight. He pictured Ellie leaving the hospital, her face lit by the dashboard's faint glow, eyes tired but kind. The image chilled him, as if she were still in that seat, silently staring through the cracked window. As he left Maple Avenue, rain began again, drops pattering on the car's hood. He turned on the wipers, glancing in the rearview mirror. The silver Honda sat silently in the rain, surrounded by white tape. A piece of evidence, a shell, and within it, perhaps the only story of the girl who vanished. The morning after the car was sealed, Ryan returned to the apartment on Eastern Parkway with 2 crime scene investigators. The 3-story building was old, its dark red brick walls and narrow damp hallway smelling of mildew, laundry detergent, and fresh coffee from an upstairs unit. Ellie's second-floor apartment door was still sealed from the first day. Jillian waited outside, eyes sunken, clutching a keyring. When Ryan nodded, she unlocked the door. It creaked open to a strangely tidy space. The small living room was bright from a single window. Everything looked as if Ellie had left just hours ago. Books neatly stacked, a ceramic mug with dried coffee stains, a jacket on a chair, no signs of a struggle, no overturned furniture. Ryan walked slowly, noting small details. A pair of white nursing shoes by the door, one caked with dried mud. But the sandal under the overpass was different. He jotted in his notebook, second pair missing, possible change, before disappearance. In the bedroom, the bed was made, sheets flat, pillows aligned. On the dresser, a photo of Ellie and her mother in Lexington, with blue pen on the back. See you next weekend. On the floor, an open suitcase held neatly folded clothes and personal items. A Greyhound ticket for August 12th. She planned to visit home that weekend, just 2 days after vanishing. Ryan sat, staring at the unzipped suitcase. She was preparing to go somewhere, not running away, he said softly. In the corner, her laptop was open, its screensaver glowing faintly. Gloved, he checked her email. Work messages, hospital notices, a few unread emails from her mother, with simple subjects like, "Call me when you're free." No strange messages, no threats, no secret meetups. Her social media stopped at 10 p.m. on August 10th, when she left the hospital. A work schedule by the fridge showed packed shifts, Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. to 3 a.m. She covered for others, worked extra hours, no signs of slacking. Jillian whispered, voice breaking. She was just saving up to go back to school. Ellie never left without telling someone. Ryan looked around one last time. Morning light filtering through white curtains, no forced entry, the lock intact. They checked under the bed, behind furniture, even the bathroom. No blood, no stray hairs. The apartment was frozen in the moment before she vanished. When the tech team finished photographing and sampling, Ryan sat at the small dining table, opening his notebook. He wrote meticulously, residence inspected, no sign of struggle. Personal effects intact. Travel bag prepared for short trip. Subject planned to visit family. He looked at the small items, the bus ticket, a medical notebook, the old coffee mug. They all said the same thing. She had no reason to leave her life. As he left the apartment, he paused at the door, scanning the space. Photos, light, the familiar scent of a young person living alone. No chaos of someone planning to flee. Just the stillness of someone interrupted midlife. Jillian asked, voice tired. What do you think, detective? Ryan replied softly, eyes on his report. I think this isn't someone who chose to disappear. She was made to disappear. As he left the building, the rain had stopped, the air warmer. Across the street, a bus rolled by, tires slicing through a thin layer of water. He watched, thinking of the Greyhound ticket still in the suitcase. She was supposed to be on that bus, heading home with a small bag, and the exhaustion of a long shift. Instead, there was only an empty apartment, a journey never begun. Ryan added a final line to his preliminary report, his handwriting firm, emotionless. No motive for voluntary disappearance. That afternoon, Ryan sat in a small interrogation room at the Louisville Metro Police Station. The room was dimly lit by white fluorescent lights, gray walls, a cold metal table, and two chairs facing each other. The only sounds were the steady hum of a fan and his pen tapping the notebook. The investigation had entered its quiet but critical phase, interviewing everyone connected to Ellie. First was Jillian Marks. Her roommate sat across, clutching a plastic water cup, eyes red from lack of sleep. Ryan spoke more gently than usual. "Tell me exactly about the last night you saw Ellie." Jillian took a deep breath, voice shaky. "She came home around 11. I heard the door open, her footsteps, then water running in the bathroom. I remember her saying she wanted a quick shower and bed. I went to sleep first. When I woke up, her bed was empty, like she was never there." Ryan asked, "Did you hear a phone, a knock, anything unusual?" Jillian shook her head, staring at the cup. "No, just the rain." Ryan noted every detail, underlining confirmed home at 11 p.m., last verified sighting. Later, he went to the University of Louisville Hospital, where Ellie worked. The staff break room was lit, smelling faintly of antiseptic. An older nurse recalled, Ellie left the locker room around 10:30. She said goodbye, mentioned heading home early for a morning appointment. Nothing seemed off. She didn't talk to anyone else. Another colleague added, she was well liked, no enemies, hard worker, didn't party, didn't drink. People like that don't just vanish. Ryan thanked them, then checked with HR to review exit cameras. Footage showed Ellie at 10:52 p.m., hurrying through light rain, unlocking her silver Civic. Then the image cut off as the car left the lot. No one else appeared with her. By evening, Ryan visited Mark Rivera, Ellie's ex-boyfriend, an electrical engineer in suburban Jeffersonville. Rivera cooperated fully, providing phone location data and home camera footage from the night she disappeared. "I was home watching a game with friends, got a pizza receipt to prove it. We broke up over a year ago, stayed friends, but didn't talk much," he said. Ryan checked the GPS logs. Everything matched. No reason to suspect him. As he left Rivera's, night had fallen. Streetlights cast long shadows on the wet road. Ryan stopped by the curb, reviewing his witness list. The last name was David Keene, Ellie's downstairs neighbor, who'd contacted police early on, saying he wanted to help. Ryan arranged to meet at the station. When Keene entered, Ryan noticed him immediately. Mid-30s, brown hair, worn checkered shirt, eyes slightly averted. His voice was low, trying to stay calm. "I heard she was missing, thought I could help." Ryan asked directly, "Did you know Ellie Grant?" "Yeah. We lived in the same building. She was nice. I'd see her in the stairwell, sometimes chatted about work." "On August 10th, did you see her?" Keene nodded, a bit too quickly. "Yeah. I saw her drive by the building, around 11:30, maybe later. Her car had its headlights on, moving slow. I thought she was coming home." Ryan locked eyes with him. "You're sure it was her car?" "Positive. I recognized the license plate. I'm good with details like that." Ryan jotted a brief note, then asked, "Where did you see it from?" "My living room window. I was watching TV, glanced outside. Hear anything else? Someone entering the building?" "No, just saw the car pass. Then I went to bed." His voice was dry, eyes darting. Ryan didn't press further. After Keene left, he immediately requested traffic camera footage near the building for 11 p.m. to midnight. Results came the next morning. No silver Civic passed through that area during that time. The cameras captured clear license plates, but nothing matched Keene's description. Ryan sat at his desk, tapping his pen, the screen's blue light on his face. A normal person couldn't see a car the cameras missed. Either Keene was mistaken, or he was lying. Ryan flipped through his file. Keene had lived there 8 months, unemployed, lived alone, with minor priors, bar fights, noise complaints, nothing major. But he was the only one claiming to have seen Ellie that night. Ryan underlined in red, Possible last witness. Statement inconsistent with traffic footage. A vague instinct stirred, not enough for charges, but enough to keep him focused on that name. As he left the station, it was pitch dark, rain drizzling again. Ryan watched water smear across his windshield, picturing the man leaning forward, gripping the metal table, voice dry. Something about Keen's story, too neat, too timed, felt wrong. He closed his notebook, the last line unfinished. He might be the last person who saw her alive. On Friday morning, an urgent meeting took place in the second-floor investigation room of the Louisville Metro Police Department. A large map was spread across the table, marked with red circles connecting the hospital to Ellie's apartment. Ryan stood before a whiteboard, his voice low and firm. If Keen's statement is false, we must assume she never made it home. Double the search radius from Eastern Parkway to the Ohio River corridor. He pointed to a green area on the map, Cherokee Park, a dense, trail-filled area near Keen's residence. Teams were split, coordinating with volunteer rescuers and canine units. They began at dawn, when fog still blanketed the hills. Cherokee Park was vast, with elms and oaks forming a damp canopy. Searchers carried maps and flashlights, moving in a line to sweep the ground. Radios crackled, and dogs barked, echoing through the woods. Ryan joined the first group, boots sinking into wet leaves, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and mist. After 3 hours, they found nothing but bottle caps, trash, and old tire tracks. Near noon, an officer from the Western team called over the radio. Got something here, near the small stone bridge toward Parkview. Ryan and 2 others rushed over. At the edge of a gentle slope, a dirt-stained white fabric was caught in a bush. It was worn, crumpled, with one corner stained by pale green paint. Ryan knelt, using tweezers to lift it, noticing a long hair tangled in the fibers. He sealed it in a nylon bag, labeled CP-14. "Get this to the lab now," he said. The team exchanged silent glances. This was the first concrete find in days. The area was marked, and soil samples were collected. Gray clay mixed with sand, faintly smelling of oil. As sunlight slanted through, Ryan stayed at the scene, gazing through the trees where a trail led to the Parkview neighborhood. Less than a mile away was Keen's building, a thin line between nature and city, peace and crime. That evening, at the forensic lab, a technician reported, "We extracted follicular cells from the hair. The DNA matches Ellie Grant's profile." The room fell silent. Ryan nodded slightly, then asked, "What about the paint?" "Polyurethane, used for wood floors and garages, not typical outdoor paint." He jotted notes quickly, then requested a comparison of the soil from the scene with the gray mud from the car's pedal. The next day, results came. The mineral composition and silica ratio were identical, unique to the Parkview Drive area, the only place within the radius with oil-tainted soil from old garage repairs. Ryan leaned back, a chill running down his spine. The threads were converging. He opened the map, drawing a line from where the Civic was found to the fabric's location. It passed directly through Keen's neighborhood. In an internal report to command, he wrote concisely, "Physical evidence recovered, confirmed victim DNA. Soil match indicates vehicle relocated post-abduction. Probable abduction scenario." That night, Ryan and the team returned to Parkview to recheck. They shone lights along the road, noting faint tire tracks, likely from a small vehicle. Summer rain had nearly erased them, but some patches held deep imprints, with axle spacing matching the Honda Civic. Ryan stood silently, staring at the quiet houses. In the dim light, a low building's basement window glowed faintly blue from a TV. Keen lived there, alone. He said nothing, only signaled his team to return to the car. On the drive back, the radio played a weather forecast. Scattered rain all weekend. He thought of the white fabric, the hair, the gray mud. They all told the same story, but the pieces weren't fully connected. The next morning, an internal memo reached the prosecutor's office. Ellie Grant's missing person case was reclassified, no longer just missing. On the white paper, bold text read, "Status changed, Criminal investigation, abduction suspected. As Ryan signed the new file, he glanced at the young woman's photo at the front. Her smiling face, white uniform, gentle eyes. He knew from this moment the case was no longer a search. It was a hunt. 4 months after finding the white fabric, the Ellie Grant case fell into a chilling silence. Every lead hit a dead end. No new witnesses, no additional camera footage, no further evidence despite 3 more sweeps of Parkview and the Ohio River corridor. Each morning, Ryan arrived at the office, opened the faded brown file labeled Ellie Grant, active case, and reviewed the photos. The silver Civic, the paint-stained fabric, the red-marked map. But each review ended in silence. He'd sent the remaining hair DNA to the state lab, hoping technology could identify a stranger's touch. 1 week, then 2, then 6, passed, with cold results. Sample too small for conclusive STR analysis. The technology of 2008 wasn't advanced enough. The DNA was too sparse, degraded by weather and time. Only short sequences were extracted, not enough for a full profile. Ryan persuaded his superiors to preserve all original evidence, hair, fabric, pedal mud, in specialized storage. He personally signed the form, evidence preserved for future DNA testing. He wrote evenly, but knew future might mean never. By January, the case's budget was cut. The prosecutor's office ordered a pause due to no viable leads. One Monday morning, Ryan received orders from his chief, cold file, hail, close it clean, move on. He stayed silent, staring at the black-inked order, then nodded. That afternoon, he carried the file to the storage room behind the police building, where thousands of unsolved cases rested. The basement archive had heavy iron doors, cold, dry air, and the smell of old paper, metal, and dust. He placed the thick file on a shelf beside others: Miller 2001, Jacobs 1995, Whitaker 1978. On the spine, he taped a label, Cold Case 1472, Ellie Grant. For a moment, he sat on a wooden chair in the corner, staring at the sealed evidence boxes. Each held fragments of an unfinished story: hair, fabric, photos, soil, data, and a person still missing. All that remained was an investigator's memory. He recalled that rainy night, the silver Civic under streetlights, the gray mud on his gloves. Now it was condensed into a numbered box among hundreds. Closing the lid, the metal clanged softly, echoing off the concrete ceiling. He wrote a final note: no further leads. Evidence sealed for indefinite storage. Then he set the pen down, staring at the dry ink on white paper. Before leaving, Ryan flipped the switch. The fluorescent lights flickered, then went out. Darkness flooded the shelves, swallowing the number 1472 on the label. In the long hallway, his footsteps mingled with the cold metallic echo, then faded. Above, the city hummed with car horns and footsteps, but in this basement, time froze among breathless evidence. The Ellie Grant case was officially closed, unsolved, reduced to a single line. Cold Case 1472. 15 years passed. Louisville changed. High-rises sprouted around Jefferson Avenue. LED billboards replaced old neon signs, and beneath the bright glow were countless unfinished stories. On the 3rd floor of the Louisville Metro Police Headquarters, the newly renovated Cold Case Division gleamed under LED lights, walls lined with yellowed victim photos. On Ryan Hale's desk, files stacked like layers of time. Now 46. His hair streaked with gray. His eyes deeper and quieter. Ellie Grant's name remained in his left drawer, in the brown file labeled 1472. He didn't need to open it to know where each photo lay: the silver Civic in the rain, the paint-stained fabric, the girl smiling at the camera. Each year, he reread the file at least once, if only to confirm it wasn't forgotten. In early 2023, the Louisville Police Department partnered with Parabon Nanolabs, a company specializing in forensic genealogy, decoding DNA through ancestry databases. The program matched old DNA samples to distant relatives, tracing back to suspects, solving dozens of cold cases nationwide. Ryan attended the first briefing in a large meeting room. A screen displayed gene sequence charts, spider web-like family trees, as a technician spoke quickly. "We don't need a name, just blood. Science does the rest." Amid colleagues' pen clicks, Ryan's heart raced, a feeling he thought he'd lost to the silence of cold files. He knew exactly which sample to retest. That afternoon, as eligible cases were listed, he circled 1472 on the board. A young colleague asked, "Still thinking about that one? It's been years." Ryan replied softly, "Some things don't belong to the past." He opened his drawer, pulled out the old file, and flipped through it with gloved hands. The photo's edges were yellowed, his own signature faint in the final report. "Evidence preserved for future DNA testing." Those words, written without expectation, had become a promise kept for 15 years. He submitted a formal request. Reanalysis request. Case 1472. 2 days later, it was approved. Ryan personally went to the archive, unlocking the rusted lock. The familiar smell of paper and metal hit him as he pulled the evidence box from the shelf. Inside, the plastic container with the hair and white fabric remained sealed, his blue-inked signature intact from 11/2008. Back then, he hadn't believed technology could read anything from that thread-thin hair. Now, that technology existed. He set the box on the table, looking through a narrow window at Louisville's gray sky. For a moment, the memory of the silver Civic on Maple Avenue returned, vivid enough to hear rain on its hood. Every detail resurfaced: the pushed-back driver's seat, gray mud on the pedal, light through the cracked window. The chill from years ago lingered. He whispered, "It's time." 3 days later, the sample was sent by secure transport to Parabon Nanolabs in Virginia. Technicians signed for it, ensuring chain of custody. An email confirmation arrived at the station, full genome sequencing initiated. Ryan read it repeatedly, gripping his coffee mug, feeling something strange, not quite hope, but close, something he thought he'd lost long ago. That evening, he stayed late. Cold white light fell on the open file. Faces in framed photos stared back, other missing persons, unresolved cases. But at the center was Ellie, her slight smile, bright eyes. Ryan touched his pen to the first page of the reopened file, writing the first line of a new journey. Case reopened, forensic genealogy analysis pending. Outside, the city quieted, car noises fading. Early spring wind carried the damp smell of the Ohio River. In that moment, Ryan realized he'd lived 15 years for this, when the past cracked open and science became the only voice for someone silent too long. 3 weeks after sending the sample, Ryan's inbox lit up with a subject line, "Genetic Genealogy Report, Case 1472. Alone in his office, with the window cracked and morning light on his monitor, he paused before clicking. The report opened, hundreds of lines and charts, a complex genetic map in green, yellow, and red. At the bottom, a bold line, "Partial familial match detected. Statistical probability, 87.3%. Surname Kane." He froze. The name hit like a slow, sharp point. Kane. He read the lab's notes carefully. The DNA sample contains partial markers consistent with individuals in the Keene family line, Jefferson County, Kentucky. They'd cross-referenced thousands of public genealogy records, narrowing it to one branch near Louisville. The final name, David Keene, male, age 42. Ryan leaned back, eyes fixed on the screen. The room grew so quiet, he heard the wall clocks tick and his own heartbeat. 15 years ago, he'd sat in this room, hearing that man's raspy voice, "I saw her drive by the house." Back then, he'd noted, possible last witness. Now, that note was becoming the center of a DNA chain. He printed the report, pages trembling under the air conditioner's breeze. The final section showed statistical analysis, likelihood ratio, 1/100,000. Close kinship to Keene lineage. No random coincidence. Ryan pulled the 2008 handwritten statement from the old file. His younger, scrawled handwriting read, "Subject claims to have seen victim's vehicle at approximately 11:30 p.m. No corroborating traffic footage." He reread each word, a chill spreading from his neck down his spine. The first puzzle piece had appeared, and it fit perfectly with what he'd suspected, but couldn't prove. That afternoon, he brought the results to the cold case command room. In a small meeting, the forensic lead flipped through the documents, frowning. "So the hair in the car has DNA tied to the Keene line?" Ryan nodded. "Not just the same surname. Genealogical analysis narrows it to one branch in Louisville. Thomas Keene, deceased 2019, and his son, David Keene." The lead leaned back, looking at him. "You sure you want to pursue this?" He cooperated, even helped the search. Ryan's voice was dry. "I know, he was too cooperative. But he's the only piece that fits the victim's DNA." The silver Honda Civic, the case's main evidence, had sat in the police storage since 2008. A thin layer of dust coated its windows, seals intact, ink faded. On a gray April morning, Ryan and the forensic team reopened the evidence warehouse. The air was cold and dry, smelling of rust and old rubber. As the steel door swung open, lead lights hit the dulled silver body, reflecting faintly like a sleeping metal corpse. "Prep the LiDAR," Ryan said quietly. Two technicians set up a 3D scanner, green lasers sweeping every centimeter. A digital model formed on the screen: chassis, undercarriage, dust layers, paint wear. Every detail was digitized, down to scratches. Their goal was to trace where the car had been in its final hours, and who drove it. A technician knelt under the car, brushing away years of dust. Dry clay flaked off, mixed with fine sand and silver-gray paint chips, stuck to the undercarriage's edge. He collected them in a small nylon bag, labeled Sample 1472, A. Ryan. Ryan watched the scanned screen, pointing to faint spots on the 3D map. There, mud splashed upward. This car went through soft terrain before stopping. At the mineralogy lab, the results silenced the team for seconds. The screen showed 58% kaolinite, 27% illite, trace titanium oxide, matching the Parkview Drive soil near Keene's old building. More striking, the paint under the car contained polyurethane with a rare catalyst used only in residential garage waterproofing, identical to paint from Keene's 2007 home repair records. Ryan sat back, flipping through the report. Everything connected: pedal mud, undercarriage paint, Parkview soil, all pointing to one place. He ordered a full route reconstruction using Journey simulation software. The team used 2008 geographic data, combining the hospital, Ellie's home, and Keene's building. On the large screen, a blue line showed Ellie's usual route, left on Eastern Parkway, straight to her building. But overlaying estimated GPS timing, the program showed the car didn't turn left. It went straight through the intersection toward Parkview, then looped to Maple Avenue, where it was found 3 days later. "This is the opposite direction," a technician said, zooming in. "She wouldn't take this route. It's a quiet residential area. No reason to loop like that unless someone else was driving." Ryan nodded, voice low, or they were looking for a place to hide the car. He requested a final 3D scene reconstruction, the car moving through the rainy night, streetlights reflecting on wet pavement, an 11-minute drive from the hospital to its final stop. When the model paused at Maple Avenue, the car turned slightly, parked neatly, lights off. It ended in silence. Ryan stared at the screen, saying softly, "This car didn't stop because the driver was tired. It stopped because the driver was done." He printed the images and report, stacking them neatly. The first page's conclusion was bold. "Physical residue undercarriage consistent with soil composition of Parkview Drive area. Polyurethane paint trace identical to garage coating at subject's residence. Vehicle trajectory inconsistent with victim's routine route, home. Vehicle relocated post-event." Reading the final line, Ryan recalled Keene's words, "I saw her drive by the house." He'd told a half-truth: the car did pass, but she wasn't driving. 2 weeks after the LiDAR report, Ryan Hale entered a small meeting room at the Jefferson County Justice Department, holding a thick file. The title page read, "Request for Covert Surveillance." Subject, David Keene. He spoke briefly, voice steady. "We have physical evidence from the victim's car, geological data, and genetic genealogy links. We believe Keene drove the car after Ellie Grant disappeared. The judge across nodded, signing slowly. The red stamp hit the paper like a door locking. After 15 years, the investigation returned to the man Ryan had never truly forgotten. A cold, damp morning in Louisville, gray clouds, drifting slowly over the city. Keene now lived in a newly built neighborhood south of town, near Long Run Park. He was 42, a refrigeration technician for a private company, single, and kept to himself. His small beige house had a porch with a faded American flag. From across the street, through a telephoto lens, Ryan observed. Keene left home at 7:15 a.m. Keene stopped at the Speedway on Shelbyville Road for black coffee to go, then drove straight to the equipment warehouse. His actions were so normal, it was almost unbelievable, the kind of routine learned by someone living quietly in the shadows. For the first 2 days of surveillance, Ryan kept his distance. The team rotated, logging every trip, every brief stop, even how Keene scratched his neck when paying. On the third day, an opportunity arose. 7:23 a.m., a dashboard camera caught Keene stopping at Speedway, buying coffee, and tossing the paper cup into the trash by the door. Ryan, in his car, felt his heart pound. "Hold position," he said, into the radio, voice low but steady. As Keene left, a technician in a janitor's uniform approached, gloved hands ready. 7 seconds later, the cup was in an evidence bag, labeled Sample DK. Speedway, 7:24 a.m. That afternoon, Ryan stood in the precinct's lab, watching a technician open the evidence bag under a fume hood. They cut the saliva-stained rim from the cup, placed it in a vial, and started the sequencer. The machine hummed steadily, like a heartbeat in the sealed room. Ryan stood with arms crossed, silent for hours, until the screen flashed a preliminary result. Sample DK. Fully matches genetic markers from case 1472 hair sample. 15 years of waiting, condensed into a cold blue line on a white background. Ryan's throat went dry. He took a deep breath to stay calm. The forensic technician looked at him, voice slightly shaky. "This is a complete match, 100%. Not just the same lineage, the same person." Ryan gave a slight nod. "Verify with STR and Y chromosome. I want no gaps." 2 days later, the results landed on his desk, signed by the lab director. Confirmed, DNA from David Keene matches with biological trace in victim's vehicle. Probability of random match, 1 in 3.8 quadrillion. No longer a guess, no longer a theory. The hair in the Civic from 2008 had found its owner. Louisville's air was still foggy when police cars quietly parked outside the small house on Long Run Road. 5:42 a.m. The air was thick, smelling of wet grass and gasoline. Red lights flashed silently, only the steady breaths of the SWAT team behind black masks. Ryan Hale stood on the porch, bulletproof vest tight against his chest, eyes fixed on the beige door. After 15 years, he faced the home of the man he'd once shaken hands with, called a helpful neighbor. Now only a thin line separated trust from truth, like the fog blanketing the grass. The search warrant, signed at 4 a.m., was still damp with the prosecutor's ink folded in Ryan's pocket. At 5:45, he nodded. The door burst open with a sharp kick, shouts of police. "Search warrant," echoing through the quiet house. Flashlights swept across walls, glinting off picture frames and tidy furniture, suspiciously ordinary. David Keene was restrained in seconds, wearing a white t-shirt, hair disheveled, hands raised, eyes blank, no resistance. Ryan said nothing. He glanced over, then signaled the forensic team to enter. The house was small, 2 stories. The living room was neat, with a fresh scent of floor cleaner. The kitchen was stark, not a single cup in the sink. But when they opened the basement door, the air shifted, a mix of dampness, cement, and rusted metal. Flashlights swept the floor, a concrete patch with uneven stains, glossier than the rest. A technician tapped a small hammer on the cement, a hollow, dull sound in the center. "This was poured recently," he said. Ryan knelt, shining his light along the wall's edge. A fresh-cut, white dust still in the tile grout. Nearby were construction tools, a shovel, empty paint cans, hardened rubber gloves. Next to them, a Quikrete cement bag, labeled September last year. He did it himself, Ryan said quietly, poured the cement to cover something. In a dark corner, under an old tarp, a technician found a dusty tin box. Ryan, gloved, opened it slowly. Inside was a faded medical bracelet, clearly engraved with 3 letters, e.g., Ellie Grant. Beside it, a white fabric scrap with silver paint, identical in color and weave to the 2008 Cherokee Park sample. The basement held its breath. No one spoke for seconds. Only the forensic camera's clicks, click, 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 like a clock ticking for a truth reborn. Call the evidence unit, Ryan ordered, voice hoarse. Seal everything. I want the cement tested. As the forensic team prepared chemicals, the luminol technician mixed the solution. The basement lights went out. Darkness thickened. They sprayed the west wall, where cement rose about 30 inches, like it was hiding an old mark. Seconds later, a faint blue glow appeared, spreading into long streaks, curving, thin, then thickening like desperate handprints. The air grew heavy, filled only with breathing. Ryan stood steps from the wall, the luminol glow reflecting on his face, eyes glinting like they were peering into a 15-year-old abyss. A technician whispered, "God, that's blood." Ryan replied, almost a whisper, "Not missing persons anymore." He knelt, looking at the bracelet in the evidence bag, the faded e.g., the University of Louisville Hospital logo, still intact on the back. The night shift nurse wore it when she left work, her final night. They scanned the floor. At the wall's edge, the glow reappeared, a blue outline circling the new cement. This area could conceal organic material, the forensic lead said, voice heavy. Ryan nodded, gripping his flashlight. He knew what lay beneath. On the basement table, a stack of loose papers was stained with cement. Each page had only numbers and dates. October 2008 was underlined, then blank until 2022. A 14-year silence in history. Dig a section here, Ryan said. The drill roared, metal piercing the air. Cement cracked, dust clouding. The smell of damp earth, iron and something deeper, like fresh soil mixed with ash. When the floor opened, revealing dark soil below, Ryan signaled to stop. He didn't want to proceed without a controlled scene. Pause, mark the spot. Take it all to testing. As the forensic team packed up, the first sunlight slipped through the basement door, illuminating floating cement dust. Ryan stood silent, scanning the room. The faint blue luminol streaks lingered on the wall, like traces of memory. He closed his eyes, hearing his heartbeat mix with the camera and footsteps on the wooden stairs. On a temporary table, he wrote a brief scene note, subfloor cement recently poured. Evidence of organic residue detected. Metallic tin box recovered, containing victim's personal item. Luminol positive along west wall. Then he looked up at the faintly glowing wall in the dark. In that moment, he understood the line between missing and murdered was a thin layer of cement, and this morning, they'd drilled through it. As Keene was led to the car, he glanced back at the house, face expressionless. Ryan watched through the doorframe, the blue glow reflecting on his face like cold fire. 15 years, he said softly. And she's finally found. The car door slammed shut. Outside, Louisville woke, morning sun hitting the dewy road, washing away the night's chill. But in that light, Ryan knew a piece of darkness had been exposed. Third floor interrogation room, Louisville Metro PD. The wall clock read 2:47 p.m., cold, white fluorescent light, reflecting off the smooth wall, where a small surveillance camera watched like an eye. David Keene sat hunched, hands cuffed on the steel table. His white t-shirt from the arrest was smudged with cement dust, fingernails gray. 6 hours passed. He hadn't spoken. Ryan Hale sat across, pen in hand, Open notebook blank. The air was thick, only the ventilation fans hummed cycling like a timer. Ryan stayed silent. He knew how to outlast a suspect's silence. 6 hours wasn't a physical test. It was about letting silence weigh on the mind until it cracked. When an officer brought a third cup of water, Keene looked up, eyes red from sleeplessness. "I need a lawyer," he said quietly. Ryan nodded. "You'll get one. But before you do, hear me out." He opened the file, pulling out a clear plastic sheet holding the EG medical bracelet. Keene glanced at it, his eyelids twitching. A small but clear reflex. "We found this in your basement," Ryan said slowly. "And under that cement, Ellie Grant's DNA. Her DNA on the wall, your DNA in her car. We don't need a confession to prove anything, but I want to know why." Keene breathed heavily, hands clenching. Minutes later, his voice rasped. "I didn't kill anyone." Ryan stared, unmoved. Keene continued, faster, like escaping a nightmare. "I just drove her home. It was raining hard. She got off work. I ran into her at the lot. I offered a ride. She agreed. Near her place, she said she felt dizzy, then collapsed. Her head hit the car door. I didn't know what to do. I hid her because I was scared." He stopped, shoulders trembling, voice controlled. Ryan tilted his head, jotting a few words. "Where'd you hide her?" "In my basement," Keene whispered. "I didn't mean harm. I was just scared people would think I did something bad." Ryan stayed silent, long. He looked at the 2008 notes, then at the man, rigid, eyes avoiding his. "You said it was raining," Ryan said softly. "But hospital cameras show her leaving the lot at 11:03 p.m. Weather report that night. Clear. 68 degrees, 52% humidity. Rain came at 2:10 a.m. She vanished by 11:15. Keene looked up, eyes unfocused. Ryan continued, voice steady. "You said she collapsed near home, but the car's mud was from Parkview soil, 4 miles away. You said you panicked, but you bought Quikrete cement last September. That's not panic, that's planning." The room's air froze. Keene sat still, hands trembling. A bead of sweat rolled down his cheek. "What do you know about me?" he asked, voice hoarse. Ryan replied instantly. "Enough to know you watched her for weeks. You lived in the same nurse's dorm, knew her shift times." "Run into her? No, David. You waited for her." He shook his head, a bitter chuckle, but his eyes lost their denial. "You don't understand. She was kind. She talked to me. No one else did. I just wanted to help her." His voice shook, then rose. "I didn't mean to." Ryan didn't flinch. "She begged you to help, didn't she? When you realized you went too far, she was still alive. But instead of calling 911, you took her home. You poured cement to bury it all, and convinced yourself it was an accident. But Ellie didn't fall, David. She was struck. The wall marks, 410 high, her head level." Keene bowed his head, hands clasped tight. The room sank into silence. The fans hummed chilled. Ryan leaned forward, voice low and firm. "You didn't panic, you planned." A long pause. Keene looked up, meeting Ryan's eyes. "You'll never understand," he said softly. "Sometimes, it only takes a second." Ryan replied, voice like steel. "Right. 1 second. But you buried it for 15 years. When Ryan left the room, the clock read 9:30 p.m. Inside, Keene sat still, his shadow distorted on the one-way glass. Ryan stood outside, looking through, fluorescent light paling his tired face, but his eyes burned with cold resolve. 2 days after the interrogation, the task force met privately in the evidence room, where new files were labeled Case 1472, Extended Financial and Digital Analysis. On the table, Ryan placed an enlarged receipt photo, faint but clear, Home Improvement Depot, 11:42 a.m. October 29, 2008. Items listed: 4 Quikrete cement bags, 6 moisture-resistant plywood sheets, 2 gallons of hydrogen peroxide, one roll of waterproof plastic, paid with David Keene's credit card, date exactly 2 days after Ellie Grant vanished. Ryan stared at the numbers, feeling like he was reading a cold confession. He recalled the interrogation. Keene's "I panicked. I didn't know what to do." But the numbers told another story. Someone who knew exactly what to buy to erase traces. The team's financial analyst pointed to a chart. After this, Keene's account had no major spending for 3 months. No trips, no dining, no shopping. He lived like a frozen man, waiting for time to pass. Ryan noted it, nodding slightly. He knew to vanish in silence. That afternoon, the digital forensics team delivered a hard drive from the house. An old 2008 Western Digital, unencrypted, over 7,000 files recovered, including a folder named Projects_08. When opened, the room went quiet. Dozens of Cherokee Park photos, where Ellie's fabric and hair were found, blurry, taken from afar, time-stamped days after her disappearance. Ryan stepped to the screen. One photo showed a wooden fence, a low ditch, a no trespassing sign. Another captured volunteer searchers with maps, some faces blurred by motion, but the lens seemed to follow them, not the scenery. He didn't just return to the scene. He watched the search like a player in his own game. "XF data?" Ryan asked. The technician nodded. "Yes, GPS shows the exact coordinates. Less than 400 meters from the Ohio River, same area as the first evidence." Ryan leaned on the table, staring at the map overlay. Red dots, photo coordinates, circled the area of Ellie's disappearance. "He went back multiple times," he said softly. "A criminal doesn't flee, he returns to control the memory." As the team decoded more, they found another folder, Search_patterns. It held scanned 2008 news articles, police and volunteer search maps, even photos of rescue teams in uniform. A file, Map_overlay. KML, used Google Earth format. When opened, it showed a digital map with dozens of overlapping layers, routes, nearby areas, timestamps and wind directions for October 25th night. Ryan stood still. He didn't just search, he calculated, predicting police movements. That evening, Ryan returned to the office. He took an old SIM card from the basement tin box, handing it to the data recovery team. The dusty card's chip was intact. 2 days later, results hit his inbox. Historical location data partially recovered. The map showed the SIM's cell tower pings, last signal before deactivation. October 26, 2008, 0:42 a.m., near a Western Cherokee Park trail. The exact time and place the search began the next morning. The next ping, at 1:07 a.m., was 4 miles away, near Maple Avenue, where the Honda Civic was found. "He moved from the park to Maple Avenue that night," Ryan said, eyes on the map. "Same time she vanished." The technician confirmed, "No doubt. This is the last location data before the SIM was disabled. He pulled it right after leaving the scene." Ryan froze, recalling Keene's interrogation. "I drove her home," she collapsed. "No," he thought. "You didn't drive her home, you took her away." He opened his laptop, overlaying all data on one map: cement purchase, phone locations, photos, the car's drop-off. Red circles piled up around the park, narrowing to one point: Parkview Drive, Keene's house. Every thread, every datum, every digital trace led to the same coordinate. The map before him was like a giant circuit board. Its heart, the basement, where the EG bracelet was found. Ryan leaned back, breathing deeply. The case, from the car's hair to the cement, the receipt to the phone signal, was like currents flowing back through time, meeting at one bright point: a planned crime. Monday morning, the Parkview Drive house basement was fully sealed. Under tarps and green halogen lights, the forensic team began the final phase: excavation. No more guesses, no more missing. Only the truth beneath the earth. Ryan Hale stood at the site's edge, in white protective gear, mask covering half his face. The basement air was heavy with cement, damp soil, and cold metal. A ground-penetrating radar was set at the room's center, its rectangular antenna scanning the cut cement. On a portable screen, soil layers appeared as waves: light green, dark green, then red-orange. "We've got an anomaly here," a technician said, pointing to a dense, curved wave 1.2 meters below. "This block doesn't match the surrounding soil, could be organic or a void." Ryan nodded. "Mark it. Prep a drill sample." The geological drill roared, its small bit piercing cement and soil. When pulled up, the dark, porous soil sample carried a faint decay odor. The team went silent. They all knew what it meant. Ryan signaled to dig. Two technicians used small shovels, slowly removing soil onto a plastic sheet. Each scoop was recorded. The metal-on-soil sound echoed in the confined space, steady and cold. At the third layer, a gray fabric patch appeared. A technician carefully cleared the edges. Seconds later, under yellow light, a small curved bone emerged, porcelain white, buried too long. No one spoke. Ryan exhaled softly, gripping his notebook. "Stop," he said, voice hoarse. "Mark the area. Continue manually." They switched to small tools: trowels, brushes, nitrile gloves. Soil was swept away. Gradually, a human skeleton emerged, curled to the right, arms shielding half the head, as if blocking a final blow. On the right wrist, an aluminum medical bracelet, nearly corroded, read E. Grant, RN, Louisville Univ. Hosp. The basement fell silent. A technician activated a 360 degrees camera, panning slowly. Ryan stepped forward, kneeling at the pit's edge, staring long. The light reflected on his face, wrinkles deeper than ever. He whispered, almost to himself, 15 years, 10 feet under his floor. Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Laura Metz knelt beside Ryan, glasses on, noting quickly, bones in semi-fossilized state, skull with a fracture at the left temple. Not a natural break. This is blunt force trauma, pre-mortem. She looked at Ryan, adding, "Not a fall." She was struck. Ryan didn't respond. He stared into the pit, where the bracelet gleamed in wet mud. In his mind, Ellie Grant appeared, walking through rain, clutching coffee, sodium lights on her blouse. 15 years, she was there, under his feet. They collected samples: bones, fabric, soil. Each item was coded, sealed, time-stamped. As the final soil was removed, a technician found a corroded metal uniform button, matching the 2008 missing person file's nurse attire. Ryan recognized it, his hand trembling slightly as he noted it. After 5 hours, the excavation ended. The remains were placed in a stainless steel box, covered with white cloth. The forensic team bowed their heads briefly before closing it. Outside, the medical examiner's transport van waited. As its door shut, Ryan turned away, eyes following until the van disappeared. His chest felt heavy, like an invisible cement block. But this time, it was truth, not guilt. 2 days later, DNA analysis arrived. The report had one bold line: genetic profile match, 99.9997% probability. DNA consistent with Ellie Grant. Ryan read in silence. No more missing person, no more cold case. It ended here, in the killer's basement, under a meter of cement. That afternoon, he stood alone outside the sealed house. Patchy grass, forensic tire tracks, still visible. He picked up a small stone, turned it in his hand, then dropped it. The sun set, orange light bathing the trees, tinting the house with memory and atonement. The Louisville Medical Examiner's room was stark white, like an operating theater, thick with ethanol and formalin. On a cold steel table, Ellie Grant's remains lay neatly in a stainless tray, cleaned and anatomically arranged. Chief Examiner Dr. Laura Metz stood by a screen showing a 3D CT scan. Fractures and joints displayed with chilling clarity, as if time was forced to tell the truth. Ryan Hale stood behind, hands in pockets, eyes fixed on the slowly rotating skull. "Preliminary report done," Metz said, voice calm but deliberate. Each word heavy: cause of death. Asphyxiation combined with head trauma. She pointed to the skull model, a crescent fracture at the left temple. Direct impact trauma, not a fall. The fracture's edge shows a dent consistent with a hammer or hard cylindrical object. But the break only caused severe injury, not immediate death. Tracheal and hyoid damage indicate strangulation or tight compression for at least 30 seconds, leading to asphyxiation. Ryan clenched his jaw, head lowered, as if shielding his eyes. Metz continued, both wrist bones have symmetrical 2 mm dents, marks from nylon or plastic cable ties. She was bound while alive. Based on bone condition, death occurred 24 to 36 hours after disappearance. The room fell silent. Ryan asked softly, "So he kept her before killing her?" Metz nodded. Yes, no signs of intense self-defense. She was likely exhausted, possibly confined immobile. Everything points to unlawful confinement, leading to homicide. On her desk, the detailed report printed simulated tie marks, a sternum fracture from compression, and abnormal chest expansion, showing a final desperate breath. "I believe she was held in the basement at least 8 hours before death," Metz said quietly. Bone calcium structure shows a brief biological response post-trauma, proving she lived after the first blow. In his mind, the pieces connected: the night shift's end, the silver Civic, they drove her home because it was raining, then the cold cement. He didn't just hide her, he held her, letting her die in fear. The report continued. The degree of tissue decomposition indicates a sealed, damp, unventilated environment. No evidence of post-mortem movement. Death occurred on site. Trace mineral content in the soil around the remains matches the cement sample from the Parkview Drive basement, confirming the victim was buried at the scene immediately after death. Ryan held the report, his eyes lingering on the final line: manner of death, homicide by unlawful confinement and asphyxiation. He set the paper down, his hand trembling slightly. He didn't just kill her, he said softly. He took her final moments, every minute, every breath. Metz nodded, her voice lowering. He wanted control. People like him don't kill impulsively. They kill for the power of someone else's fear. Outside the window, a light rain began to fall, pattering against the glass. Ryan looked out, the city cloaked in a damp gray just like that night. 15 years had passed, but Louisville's rain still carried a cold, stinging scent. He signed the report's final page, his handwriting concise and firm. Received and reviewed, Lieutenant R. Hale, Cold Case Division. Then he stepped into the hallway, where the light was softer, taking a deep breath. On the wall, Ellie's black and white photo from the file stared back, her smile faint, but her eyes bright and alive. Ryan paused, looking long, then whispered, as if promising himself, "No longer missing Ellie. Now justice will speak the rest." 2 weeks after the forensic report's release, the Ellie Grant case entered its final phase: prosecution. The Jefferson County Prosecutor's Office was packed that morning, files stacked high, a whiteboard scrawled with arrows and timelines. Ryan Hale walked in, carrying a 2-inch thick file labeled Case 08-2147. Under the yellow light, the words "DNA confirmed, evidence verified" stood out like the end of 15 years of silence. Prosecutor Marilyn Trask, leading the case, sat at the table's head. Around 50, her voice calm but resolute. She was known for never prosecuting with even a % of doubt. Flipping through pages, she asked, "I need to ensure every piece of evidence has an unbroken chain of custody. We can't let anyone claim a time gap." Ryan nodded. All evidence was sealed per protocol. "We have continuous sign-off logs from 2008 to 2023. Both the hair in the car and the basement soil have independent verification." He placed a route map and a highlighted bank statement on the table. The day she vanished, he withdrew cash, bought cement, and had no card activity for 2 days after. He planned, hid, and went silent. Trask studied the faded EG medical bracelet photo. "DNA from this?" Ryan replied, "Yes. Keen's fingerprints are faint, but epithelial cells on the inner surface match his cheek swab, 99.9%. She nodded. And motive? Control, Ryan said, voice low. He was obsessed with her for months. Computer data shows he tracked her shifts, downloaded maps of her area, even photographed the search teams. She rejected him, and he couldn't let it end. The prosecutor took notes, then opened the charges file. We can pursue 3 routes: murder in the first degree, unlawful confinement, or combined, under 507.020, kidnapping resulting in death. She paused, looking at Ryan. Which reflects the truth best? Ryan answered after a brief silence. The last one. He took her, held her, and let her die. Not an impulse, but deliberate. Kidnapping resulting in death. That's what happened. Trask nodded slightly. All right. We'll present to the grand jury with that charge. Maximum penalty, life without parole. She turned to the legal team. Prepare a comprehensive brief. All digital evidence, physical items, and DNA reports must align in one sequence. Action, consequence, cover-up. Ryan opened his laptop, connecting the projector. A timeline from October 25, 2008 to 2023 appeared. 11:03 p.m. Ellie Grant left the hospital parking lot. 11:18 p.m. Camera lost signal. 12:42 a.m. Keen's phone pinged at Cherokee Park. 1:07 a.m. Next ping at Maple Avenue. October 27, 2008. He withdrew $240 cash. October 29, 2008. Receipt for cement, plywood, chemicals. 09/2022. DNA 100% matched to car hair sample. 03/2023. Basement excavation, bracelet and remains found. Each point was linked by a thin red line, a seamless thread of blood, Ryan said softly. Not one point strays from the chain. He wrote the story with his actions. At the meeting's end, Trask signed the file's first page. State of Kentucky vs. David Keene charge. Kidnapping resulting in death below, the prosecutor's seal stamped down, leaving a deep red smudge on the paper. Ryan looked at the file, hearing the metallic clang of a heavy door closing. 15 years, hundreds of investigation hours, thousands of report pages, all condensed into one file. He flipped to the last page, where a brief administrative note carried the weight of a life. Case number 08-2147, closed by DNA match. Courtroom 2 at Jefferson County Courthouse blazed with light, packed with people. Reporters crowded the back, black camera lenses lined up like predators' eyes. On the high bench, Judge Harriet Lowell tapped her gavel, voice calm but firm. Preliminary hearing for the Commonwealth of Kentucky versus David Keene begins. At the defendant's table, David Keene wore an orange jumpsuit, hands clasped, head low. Gone was the calm from interrogation. He looked smaller in the cold white light. Ryan Hale sat with the prosecution. Thick file open, pages marked with yellow tabs. Before him was Marilyn Trask, ready to present the evidence. She stepped to the podium, facing the judge. Your Honor, today we present conclusive evidence that the defendant David Keene kidnapped, confined, and killed Ellie Grant in October 2008. For 15 years, this was a missing person case, but through forensic science and genetic investigation, the truth has been restored. Trask signaled. The large screen lit up, showing forensic timeline markers, the silver Honda Civic in the rain, DNA reports, cement receipt, and the basement scene with blue luminol glowing on the wall. This isn't just a missing person story, she said, voice low, each word sharp as metal. It's a story of a plan to strip someone's freedom, step by meticulous step. As Trask spoke, Ryan displayed a 3D road simulation for October 25th night, from the hospital to Cherokee Park, then Maple Avenue. The timing between points matches the defendant's phone signals. He showed the GPR scan, revealing an anomalous soil block 1.2 meters below the basement. Here, we found the victim's remains, her bracelet, and soil matching the mud in her car. All tied to one place, one person. Defense attorney Jonathan Pierce stood, around 40, stocky, sharp-voiced. He said, "Your Honor, we're discussing evidence found 15 years later. No living witnesses, no one saw my client harm Miss Grant. A hair in a car, a bracelet, some dirt. Is that enough to condemn a man for life?" He turned to the prosecution, voice rising. "It's all interpretation. Your Honor, forensic evidence doesn't tell stories, people do. And here, no one's alive to tell." The room fell silent. Ryan looked at Keene, then stood, taking the witness stand. He placed his hand on the Bible, swore, and faced the judge. "Science can tell a story if you know how to listen." He opened the file, pulling out a list of 11 independent pieces of evidence. Keene's DNA on the car's hair sample. 2. Soil traces matching basement minerals. 3. Cement and chemical receipt, 48 hours, post-disappearance. 4. Cherokee Park photos on Keene's hard drive. 5. Police search maps saved in his search_patterns folder. 6. Old SIM card GPS data at the scene at 0:42 a.m. 7. Binding marks on the victim's wrists. 8. Skull, fracture matching a basement tool. 9. Luminol positive west wall, DNA matching the victim. 10. Keene's fingerprints on the EG bracelet. 11. Defendant's contradictory statement about time and weather. Ryan spoke slowly, steadily, eyes on the judge. 11 pieces, collected over 15 years, all point to one person. No witnesses needed when the scene speaks for itself. Judge Lowell leaned back, flipping through the file, then asked the prosecution, "Is there final DNA confirmation?" Trask replied, "Yes, Your Honor. Kentucky State Forensics confirms a 99.9997% match. It can't be anyone else but David Keene." The courtroom hushed, only the clerk's pen scratching. Pierce attempted one last objection, his voice weaker. "Your Honor, someone else could have placed the body there. My client could be framed." Lowell cut him off with a sharp gavel tap. "Enough, counselor." She stood, voice resonating in the silent room. "Based on DNA evidence, forensic findings, financial records, and an airtight event chain, this court finds sufficient grounds to charge the defendant David Keene with kidnapping, resulting in death." The gavel struck, echoing like metal on stone. Ryan closed his eyes, breathing deeply. In the public seats, Ellie's mother sat, head bowed, clutching a tissue. For the first time in 15 years, she heard her daughter's name in court, not in a missing column, but in a charge of justice. As the hearing ended, Keene was led out, flashbulbs popping. Ryan stood still in the hallway, looking through the courtroom's glass door. The bronze plaque above reflected faintly. "Truth, though buried, shall rise again." He smiled tiredly, whispering as if to Ellie. And today it rose from the ground. On March 17, 2024, David Keene's trial began at Jefferson County Courthouse, Louisville. 15 years after Ellie Grant vanished, her name rang out again, not in missing person reports or rain-soaked posters, but in a packed courtroom where justice was finally named. Ryan Hale sat in the witness section, gray suit, neat, old notebook in hand. On the bench, Judge Harriet Lowell kept a calm face. Flanking her, Prosecutor Marilyn Trask and Defense Attorney Jonathan Pierce prepared for a legal battle. The city watched closely. As the trial opened, Keene was brought in. White shirt, wrists marked by cuffs, his eyes blank. He didn't bow his head or look around. When the clerk read the charge, kidnapping, resulting in death, under Kentucky Revised Statutes 507.020, he only said softly, "Not guilty." The room stayed silent. Trask stepped to the podium, her voice steady and cold. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is no longer a guess. This is a planned, executed, and concealed crime, spanning 15 years. Every DNA sample, receipt, and computer click points to one man, David Keene." She held up the first photo, the faded EG medical bracelet, found in his basement, with Ellie Grant's remains, DNA perfectly matched, and on the metal, his fingerprints. A soft murmur spread. In the back, Ellie's mother covered her mouth. eyes wet. Ryan sat straight, eyes on the screen as forensics displayed the basement scene. Drilled cement, blue luminol glowing on the wall. This is where she was held, struck, and buried, Trask said, voice catching briefly, then steadying. She presented the GPR map, radar waves, showing an anomalous soil block 1.2 meters below. Then a sequence, cement receipt, phone data, Cherokee Park photos, deactivated SIM GPS, and the forensic report stating cause of death, asphyxiation and head trauma, within 36 hours of disappearance. Ladies and gentlemen, Trask said, facing the jury, these pieces don't stand alone. They form one story of a young woman leaving her shift, held in fear, and buried under her neighbor's floor, who joined her search. Pierce stood, countering. It's all circumstantial, he said, voice strong but trembling. No one saw David Keene kill Miss Grant. Evidence could have been moved, DNA contaminated. Your Honor, a man can't be convicted on numbers alone. Trask turned, a faint smirk. No, Mr. Pierce. But he can, when every number says the same thing. She held up the report. Keene's DNA in her car, his GPS at the burial site, his signed receipt, his photos, his cement in the basement. Not one number, a chain of causation. Ryan took the stand, recounting the case's reopening from the preserved hair to full genome sequencing to the Keene lineage match. His voice was low, firm, each word carved in wood. Every piece is a moment in time. Together, they form the clear picture of that night. No doubt remains, Keene kidnapped, confined, and killed Ellie Grant. Pierce pushed back. Mr. Hale, he said, did you see my client at the scene? Ryan met his eyes. No, but his DNA was on her hair, her bracelet, under her nails. Science saw for me. The word silenced the room for seconds. Even Judge Lowell paused her pen, looking up. The trial lasted 4 days. Dozens of expert witnesses, technicians and forensic specialists testified. Each statement drove another nail into the wall of truth. Keene stayed silent throughout, eyes empty, occasionally glancing at the window like seeking an escape he knew was gone. On the 5th day, as the prosecution rested, Trask faced the jury. Justice has no expiration. For 15 years, Ellie Grant lay under cement. But today, science brought her back to point at the man who buried her. We don't ask you to trust emotion, we ask you to trust truth. Her voice rasped as she stepped back. The Commonwealth rests. Judge Lowell sent the jury to deliberate. The wait felt like a century. Ryan sat in the second row, clutching his old notebook. He'd worked hundreds of cases, but none made him tremble like this. Beside him, Ellie's mother sat silent, hands clasped. 4 hours later, the jury room door opened. The foreperson, a middle-aged man, held a paper and stepped to the podium. His voice was clear, unwavering. On the charge of kidnapping resulting in death, we find the defendant guilty. The room held its breath, then Ellie's mother's soft sob broke through. Ryan closed his eyes, head bowed, hands white-knuckled. Keene stood motionless, face pale, eyes lifeless. Judge Lowell struck her gavel, voice clear. The defendant, David Keene, is sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. Execution of sentence falls to the Kentucky Department of Corrections. A second gavel strike rang, final and heavy. Is done. As guards led Keene through the hallway, he glanced at Ryan. No words, no expression, just the look of a man who'd lost everything, even reasons to justify. Ryan met his gaze. Eyes not angry, just cold and steady as steel. 3 months after the verdict, the Ellie Grant case was officially closed in the Louisville Metro Police System, but for investigators, it marked the start of another chapter, lessons and protocols. In a fifth-floor meeting room, neon lights reflecting on a stainless steel table, Ryan Hale sat with forensic technicians and cold case division representatives. On the large screen, a title read, LMPD Case Study, Preserved Evidence and Forensic Genealogy Applications. Case 08-2147. Ryan presented, wearing a light blue shirt, holding a 54-page report labeled Internal Use Only. His voice was even, slow, carrying the weight of every case detail. The Ellie Grant case wasn't solved by luck, he began, but by two things: precise evidence preservation and forensic genealogy technology. If any step failed, the result would be zero. The screen showed the 2008 evidence box, a clear plastic container with a blue seal holding a hair, fabric scrap, and soil bag. He said, when STR systems weren't advanced enough, this sample was useless. But because it was stored in stable conditions, temperature, humidity, intact seal, it could be fully sequenced after 15 years. He pointed to a protocol chart: preservation, storage, cross-referencing, extraction, genealogy analysis. Forensic genealogy doesn't just find 100% matches, it analyzes distant relatives. As public genealogy databases grew, we could trace relatives 4-5 generations back, narrowing to real suspects. A technician asked, "Is there a risk of error in genealogy inference?" Ryan nodded. Yes, without demographic or geographic data, models can veer off. But combining forensic data, soil, finances, schedules, digital records, tightens hypotheses. That intersection builds a logical story. He moved to the next slide, a Louisville map with layered data: GPS, soil, transactions, car location, cement samples. This is a three-tier chain: physical, digital, genetic. Each can stand alone, but together, they form an unbreakable structure. Pens clicked as FBI Cold Case Division Representative Susan Adair took rapid notes. "We'll include this in our federal long-term cold case training module," she said. "From Louisville, we'll build national guidelines for storing and reanalyzing old DNA. Your phrase, 'Science remembers what people forget,' I want to use as a motto." Ryan gave a tired smile. It's the truth. Science doesn't forget. The meeting lasted over 3 hours. At its end, the LMPD cold case chief stood, shaking Ryan's hand. "We'll archive this as the Case 1472 blueprint," he said. "Your report will go to the FBI Academy at Quantico. It'll teach every young investigator." Ryan nodded, silent. He'd spent half a month perfecting the 54-page report, each line distilled from 15 years. The final page, written at 2 a.m. under his office's yellow light, had one sentence: "Preserve everything. Time will do the rest." A week later, the FBI sent a formal thank you. The Louisville 2008 case will be integrated into the National Forensic Genealogy Training Program. Your methodology on sample preservation and multi-source evidence correlation sets a new benchmark for cold case investigations nationwide. Reading it, Ryan sat quietly. It wasn't glory, just confirmation that Ellie's death wasn't forgotten in vain. That afternoon, he returned to the archive, where dim yellow light fell on stacked file boxes. He walked to shelf 4, section Cold Case, closed. Among hundreds, the label 1472, Grant. Ellie sat there. He opened the box, checked the seal, and added a new label, closed. National Training Model, 2024. Placing it back, Ryan stood still. The archive air was cold, dry, with only the hum of a fan. 15 years, from the first rainy nights to the courtroom's bright lights, now fit in a 30 by 40 centimeters plastic box. But within was a journey of science, persistence, and human memory. Before leaving, he switched off the light. The glow faded, leaving the file label faintly lit under an emergency bulb. Like a small flame in the dark, Ryan turned, pushed the steel door, and stepped into the hallway. Outside, Louisville settled into a calm afternoon. On his desk, a case report copy lay neatly, its final page stamped red by the FBI. Accepted for national use, Cold Case Division, Quantico. Ryan looked out the window, clouds reflecting on the Ohio River. He whispered, voice soft but firm, "You let us hear, Ellie. Your story will teach those who come after to never give up." Then he closed the office door, leaving only the clock's echo, the steady rhythm of justice, finally written. The Cold Case Division office was silent as a chapel. Late at night, only a desk lamp lit the papers. Ryan Hale sat alone, shirt creased at the elbows, a cold coffee mug beside him. Before him was the final Ellie Grant report. 54 typed pages, 15 years of investigation, thousands of search hours, and a truth finally named. His pen trembled slightly as he wrote the last line, one he'd thought of for years but never dared to write. One strand of hair, 15 years, one truth. He sat silently, staring at the words like they were an ending. In the room, only the hum of the air conditioner and the tired tick of the clock's seconds filled the space. Everything he'd chased, the silver car, the fabric scrap, the blue luminol glow, the half-true, half-false statement, now rested in a neatly bound, thick file. A person had been given back her name, a crime exposed, and an investigator could finally exhale in silence. He stood, clutching the file, and walked slowly down the hallway. The dim lights reflected off the cement floor. Ryan passed black and white photos on the wall, faces of victims from unresolved cases. Each seemed to follow him, silently asking, "When will it be my turn?" He answered quietly in his mind, "Someday, when science finds your voice." He stopped at the archive's steel door, swiping his card. The door opened, cold air rushing out. Rows of tall shelves stood like tombstones. He found the third slot on the right, closed cases. Among hundreds of neatly stacked plastic boxes, he placed file 1472, Grant, Ellie in its spot. The new label still smelling of adhesive. Closed, National Training Model, 2024. Ryan closed the box's lid, pressing until it clicked softly. The small sound, to him, was the sound of justice sealed, of a soul laid to rest. He stared at the box for a long time, then placed his hand on it, whispering, "Sleep well, Ellie. You're home now." He turned, flipping the light switch. The fluorescent glow flickered once, then died. In the archive, only a faint emergency light reflected on the file label, 1472, Grant, Ellie, glowing dimly in the dark, like a candle of memory. The steel door shut behind him, its hinges echoing low in the empty space. In the hallway, the clock struck 2 a.m. Ryan stood still for a moment, feeling his heartbeat slow. No more gavel strikes, no more statements, no more rain on the silver car's hood, just a silence so deep it chilled. As he stepped out of the building, Louisville's night breeze brushed past. Above, faint stars reflected on the calm Ohio River. Ryan inhaled deeply, closed his eyes, then opened them. His gaze held exhaustion, regret, and peace. He knew he'd return to other files, other cases, other faces without answers, but tonight, at least one had been named. Inside the archive, the last light faded, darkness cloaked the shelves, and in that silence, the silence of closure, of justice fulfilled, only a slow heartbeat echoed, then dissolved. The silence of closure. The story of Ellie Grant is not just a criminal case closed after 15 years, but a mirror reflecting American society today, where justice may come late, but can still be found through faith, persistence, and the power of science. In a nation always changing, where people are easily swept up by the rush of life, this story reminds us that time cannot erase truth if someone keeps searching for it. Ryan Hale, with just one preserved hair over 15 years, proved that care in the smallest details can change an outcome. In real life, this is like facing our own cases, unresolved matters, losses, unanswered questions, and only by not giving up do answers emerge. On a community level, the Ellie Grant case also reminds Americans of the value of trust in science and the transparency of the legal system. The use of forensic genealogy not only solved the case, but opened new ways to understand evidence, preservation, and interdisciplinary collaboration. It teaches us that technological progress, when used rightly, can be the most humane tool, giving voice to those long gone. And above all, from the silence of a basement to the light of a courtroom, we learn that every choice leaves a trace. Evil may hide for 15 years, but justice can wait longer. In today's American society, amid noise and doubt, This lesson is a powerful reminder that truth can be buried, but it never dies. Thank you for following Ellie Grant's journey to justice, where science and faith met after 15 years of silence. Please subscribe to our channel to join us in exploring more cases seemingly buried by time, because sometimes you might be the one to help write the final chapter of an unfinished story.